What is going on, everyone? Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing someone that I knew prior to selling heavily on Amazon FBA in the sneaker botting and reselling community. He just recently hit 1 million in sales, doing primarily, I think, online arbitrage and wholesale. I enjoy following him on social media on Instagram at TonaFBA. Really see watching his growth as well as all the game that he spits on Instagram. Michael, welcome, man.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for having me. Really excited to do this with you.
Yeah. I wish we got to talk beforehand. It's been a long time coming for
Yeah,
sure.
I know, for sure.
So just a quick introduction to the viewers about yourself, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I know you kind of know a little bit about me, like in my previous botting days. So pretty much how I kind of got started with just reselling in general was from just local, sneaker drops, stuff like that. I'm 28 right now, so I was probably in college, probably at like 20, 21, just like flipping random. You probably know like when Ultra Boosts were flipping back in the
Yeah,
days,
right.
like right when like the triple whites and all that stuff kind of came out. That was like the first stuff I ever flipped. I made like an eBay account, started there. A buddy of mine was just teaching it to me. He's like, yo, just go for these like Supreme drops on your phone, stuff like that, when
Right.
Supreme was like really big. And I made, average money for a college student. And I just like got hooked on that, that like reselling, like, you know, boosts or whatever. And
Yeah.
I was just like, you know what? Let's keep doing this. Let's keep grinding out. I heard about botting from the same kid. And I was like, you know what? Let me try this out. And then fast forward a couple years, I was still trying out botting. I was probably like 6 months into it. And then COVID actually hit. So it was actually a pretty far forward.
Mhm.
And COVID hit, and I was out of a job. I was doing personal training
Mhm.
full time, and I was out of a job. And I was like, you know what? Let me do botting. Let me like actually put some time into it, learn it. I was watching like a lot of YouTube,
Oh, yeah.
just networking with that community, and I got really good at botting. Like I did it for like 2, 3 years, and really got into like all the Yeezys and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure you were doing all that stuff too. And as botting kind of slowly started getting a little more saturated, I realized that Amazon was like a big thing, and I kept seeing like sponsored tweets, and I was like, why don't I just kind of like try to bot some stuff and sell it on Amazon? And that's
Right.
how I kind of started. And there's a lot of like brick shoes that I was offloading, like bread lows and mids, and I was probably making like $5 reselling it locally. And then on Amazon, I was making like 30, 40, 50 a
Yeah.
pair. And I was
Yeah.
like, wow, this is great. And then I
Crazy.
realized people were doing even more on Amazon. They were doing wholesale. People were doing like Kohl's.com, Nike.com.
Right.
And that's pretty much just what started it. I had a mentor. I had a buddy of mine, George. You probably have seen his posts, Arbitrage Addicts.
Uh-huh.
He's local to me. And
Okay.
he taught me. And then that's pretty much how it all started.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I think it was during the tail end of COVID. I was also just finding like these. It wasn't actually shoes and stuff. I was in a group that would have like, I think like Ziplocs and stuff were like going out of stock. Things that were just like generally used things that are going out of stock that were
Mhm.
hard to find were selling really well on Amazon. I didn't really start selling like shoes and stuff until later on when I started getting a little more serious on Amazon. Um, but yeah, I think COVID made like a lot of people rich,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
especially with the online games like uh,
Yeah.
um, Xbox is not Xbox, what is it? PS5s and whatnot, right?
PS5s is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what compelled you to start selling on Amazon from sneaker botting and sneaker reselling? Were you already selling those shoes on Amazon, or how'd that go about?
I think it was more so the saturation of botting, and like
Mm.
botting isn't dead, but it just was getting harder, and you have to invest a lot into botting. You
Right.
had to buy like IP addresses and all that kinds of stuff. There's a lot more risk with it because you could go a few $1,000s into a setup, and I was doing pretty like heavy into my setups. I had like 10, 20 bots at some times. You're paying for
Yeah.
servers, you're paying for all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you could come out with, nothing, or you could break even. You could get 50 pairs and break even because your
Yeah.
setup was so big. And I was just like, you know what, this just isn't worth my time. And I was like, let me put more time into Amazon.
Right.
And I just started, listening to podcasts, seeing all, like following the whole community. And I realized just how much money you can make with Amazon. And I was like, you know what, let me pivot completely. And yeah, ever since then, it's just taken off a lot.
Right.
And obviously, there's online arbitrage, retail arbitrage. I knew those models the best in the beginning. And then I kind of started pivoting to wholesale within the last 6 months. And that's really what like kind of got this going as like a full-time career for me.
Right. I think earlier in botting, it was worth it. Like you could lose a bunch in one drop, but then that next drop, you just make a
Yeah.
bunch more, and you kind of
Yeah.
it would balance itself out. But those big drops where you make big money be in the huge green at that time.
Yeah. I think I brought breaking even was a very sad day with botting, but there was like, and you could look at my other Instagram page, the Botter Tona page. I have a few Instagrams. It's at Botter Tona. There's one drop I did really, really well on. I was on vacation doing it from a laptop, and I think I hit like 450 easies or something, like the
Jeez.
slides. It was
Damn.
when like the black pair came out, so it was like a
Uh-huh.
really popular model, and I was
Right.
like, all right, this is great. And then the next three drops, I kind of just flopped. And then that's what made me pivot to Amazon. I was like, I was just very annoyed.
Right. So I was when I first started botting, I was actually botting, right? But towards the tail end, I was more so on the selling proxy and renting bots outside. So like I would hear it. Like if it was a bad drop where like majority of botters didn't do well, dude, I would hear it from
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
From the users that bought the proxies and the people that ran bots from me, like I understand. Okay, so can you tell me something that you wish you were aware of when you first begun selling on Amazon after you were done with botting and sneaker reselling? When you started getting into Amazon, that very beginning part that you mentioned when you were watching YouTube and whatnot and started selling.
Yeah. So I had a couple people like teaching me, like mentors. I had a course, like a little mini course that I bought. And there were some things that weren't covered, which
Uh-huh.
I was kind of like, annoyed at the time because I didn't know much. And I was like, oh, this shoe is performing so well. And it was like 2,000 sales per month. And it was
Yeah,
actually like a variation listing. And like no one
right.
really explained it back then. Like this was over like a year ago when I was getting
Yeah.
started. And I did a good like 3 months of research into Amazon prior to like selling stuff.
Uh-huh.
And you didn't hear much about like ungating and stuff like that. But there's two big issues. One, the variation listings,
Mhm.
the sales per month. No one really mentioned that it was actually the total listing. But nowadays
Right.
it's like pretty talked about
Everyone
on
knows.
Twitter and
Yeah.
Instagram. And number two, variation listings. If there's a missing size, it's impossible to get that listed on Amazon. And there's
I've
one
tried.
specific,
Yeah.
you have to use like the variation wizard, but
Template.
like I've tried
Yeah.
it. I've tried it. It's so hard to just get
Yeah.
it. You need so many like requirements to add it. But there's one specific instance when I found a really, really good item on sale, and I was like looking at the listings. I had a lot of sales, and it was a women's shoe. I bought like all the common sizes, like from 6 to 9.5, but I
Uh-huh.
didn't realize a 7.5 wasn't on the listing. And I'm like, oh, it's fine. And then people were telling me like, oh yeah, you could sell it, just add it. And I'm like, okay. So I ended up buying all the sizes, and then I still to this day have like 40 pairs of the size 7.5 in my garage. And it's like
Oh my God.
$2,000. It's just been sitting, and it's
That's
never been
so
put back
bad.
up.
Damn.
So it's
Have
like
you have you tried putting it on eBay or anything?
I am
Oh,
banned on
liquidate?
eBay,
Oh,
sadly.
you are?
Yeah,
Damn, that sucks.
completely banned. Like I've made new accounts, I've put it under a new LLC. They still tie it to me somehow. They're very smart about it.
Yeah.
They actually banned everyone related to me, like on the
Oh,
addresses.
wow.
And I
Wow.
actually got in touch with someone who works at eBay, and they got my family members unbanned. But they told me like I like breached like a part of their TOS that's like very like frowned upon, which was
That's
basically
brutal.
just someone who I was selling to was using eBay coupons at the time.
Uh, uh-huh.
And I didn't really know this. I was just like, yo, I'm going to sell you my shoes at this price on eBay. And he was using like 20 off coupons, and he used like 80 accounts to buy them. And they
Oh,
thought I was buying my own products. They thought I
oh,
was like
wow.
laundering money basically. And I was just like,
Yeah,
you know what?
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just over it. But it was just a bad situation to be in. But I was like, you know what? It's over. It's whatever.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I could still dump shoes on like Mercari, Poshmark, Grailed, stuff like that. But eBay is like a big, and I know you're a
For
big
sure.
eBay seller too. It's like, it's a great marketplace. So it
It
kind of
is.
hurts not selling stuff. And I could sell it on like my family members' accounts, but I'm scared they're gonna like ask for invoices or something.
Right, right. Yeah, I actually haven't heard of people getting banned on eBay. Like I know like with Amazon, like I have a private label account that I sell with one of my
Mhm.
partners, and I don't even get near that account because I'm so afraid like they're going to detect like my same IP on both accounts and then try to say that
Mhm.
I'm like using both accounts for my competitive gain because I see so many of those like instances. And this was before I even knew that was a thing, right? Like, because before I was doing online arbitrage, I was doing private label, and I would get on because I own one fully, and then I own my other one with my partner who we used to own Nocturnal Proxies together. But I would go back and forth on it freely until I found out like later on that Amazon's really like anal about banning people about just
Is it
playing.
under a different LLC by any
It is.
chance?
Yes, it is.
I feel like you'd be fine as long as you're not listing the same ASINs. I
Yeah,
feel like they. I mean, it's still like something you don't want to like tread. You want to tread lightly on, but
yeah, yeah.
I
But
feel
so
like
we
as long as you're not selling the same ASINs, they probably wouldn't. But
maybe.
you never know. Honestly, I wouldn't
Yeah.
even risk it.
Yeah,
It's not even worth it.
there's been a lot of instances where Amazon has like almost like shut down my account for no reason. So I just don't even want to mess with it.
Yeah.
But kind of going back to what you're saying, I think the whole Amazon, the shoes that we're selling on your on Amazon. I think a lot of people are timid to sell first because they don't see those first sales. Like I remember when I first put my private label brand up, right, and I start seeing the sales come in, I'm like, oh shit, like there are really people buying on this listing, and I
That's
barely have any
exciting.
reviews. You know,
That's
and
exciting from a private
yeah,
label standpoint.
well, yeah, but that's why when I came into online arbitrage, it was like, of course it's going to sell. Like my private label, I can check the statistics. I do like 50, 100 sales a month. When I'm looking at this Nike shoe showing 2,000, of course it's going to sell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas the person who's never sold on Amazon before, I think they come on kind of hesitant about buying anything because they've never seen something sell like that before on Amazon. So when they first get that listing up, they see those sales. I think that's when people start just kind of breaking through.
Yeah.
Um, Okay, so can you tell me something that you wish you were aware of when you first began selling on Amazon?
Hmm. The selling like more rare shoes, like if you want to sell like mids and Jordans and stuff like that, or just shoes in general, um, it wasn't talked about as much with returns and the
Yeah,
issues of returns and stuff like that. Which, for those who don't know, obviously, um, if you get a return pair of shoes and it's used, it's kind of hard to win those claims. I mean, you can win them if you have, the proper information, but when it happens with like FBA inventory, it's kind of hard to
no
win
way.
those.
Yeah,
They do a lot of removal orders, and sometimes you'll just have a whole customer to swap out shoes, and you're getting back a pair of someone's Adidas slides instead of your Jordan 4s or
I've never
Jordan
had a Friday
whatever's.
like that. Wow. Have you
Yeah.
tried? Have you ever tried getting like it was through FBA and you got it and it got removal ordered because it was unfulfillable? And did you try to like claim it?
So I haven't tried that yet because I haven't had a huge issue like that since. Because usually I'm just sending it. Like if I'm gonna sell like a Jordan or a mid or a low, I'm FBMing it. If
Okay.
I'm selling it like a running shoe, it's going to the FBA warehouse. Just because
Okay.
most customers aren't doing that. It's most of the people who buy Jordans and
Right.
Air Force Ones that are gonna scam you. So
Right.
I try to FBM that stuff, but I have been told from a friend of mine that he has like kept the white slip, kept the package it came in, kept all of the info that it came in, and said, "Hey, like
Yeah.
this package came back. You guys said it was damaged. It's like a pair of cleats, and it's like
Yeah.
I'm selling a Nike." And then he actually did get reimbursed for it,
Wow. Wow.
but that was only one instance. So I don't know if they'll do it every single time that happens,
Right.
especially if it's like worn, because I do get a lot of removals that are slightly worn, which sucks. But that's like the Amazon try before you buy program,
Yeah. Right. Right. Well,
which I hate.
I've gotten shoes that were clearly worn, but I sold them through FBA. And I tried to open up a ticket to try to get like reimbursed, and they said no every
Yeah.
single time. I even tried like not shoes, like household products. I thought maybe that would be a little different, but still,
Mhm.
yeah, no, they don't cover it.
Yeah.
It
It
sucks.
sucks, but it's just part of the business. Like
Right,
if,
right.
if you're profitable at the end of the day,
Yeah,
like if you're doing 100K in sales a month, who cares about $200 of
right.
shoes or $300 of shoes? Just have a garage sale or just throw them up on eBay and throw that money back into inventory.
Well, you're smart to just do the higher end. I say high end, but like in the hundreds ish, the mids and whatnot through FBM, just so you can make a claim. Um, I would send them all through FBA. I didn't get too many returns. I don't get. I mean, I do get about I think it was like 9.1% return rate for just like shoes and stuff,
Mhm.
but I offset it by doing a really high ROI. But I don't get like the return like craziness that most people talk about, like where it's hella used. They can come back
Yeah.
usually just fine. So
I think it just depends on the shoe. Like I did sell a lot of like Air Forces at one point,
yeah,
and if someone just tries it once and the bottoms look a little like worn, you'll get a lot of FBA removals for that. Whereas like if it's like a black shoe and the bottoms are black, yeah, I don't have a lot like a big return rate with those.
Right.
So it
See,
really it always just comes down to like the specific ASIN or the specific product.
right. And I will say that's kind of when I started kind of realizing how much I could make on Amazon was when I started putting out like mids and stuff because that wasn't something that
Mhm.
I was familiar with on Amazon. I thought, oh, people just sell, running shoes and stuff. But when I remember watching this guy's video when I was first like inputting, and I was trying to find out how to like add stock and all this stuff to inventory, and he was like adding mids. It's like, holy shit, you can sell mids. And I
So
was a little hesitant at first, but then I was like,
yeah.
when they're not like Jordans where it's like 200 something, 300 something, like it's 110, $120. But anyways, yeah, that's kind of where I kind of broke through. I will say a lot of those higher end shoes have been kind of breaking lately a little bit, especially like pandas and stuff, Panda Dunk highs at least.
Yeah, but that's just because they're making so many nowadays. But one big pair of mids that actually popped off for me were mulberry mids. The like
Oh
pink
wow.
ones,
Uh-huh.
the women's ones. Those I had a lot just like left over from like
Yeah.
I just sit on a lot of shoes, and sometimes it's just like I got lucky because I
Yeah.
transitioned to Amazon. But like some of these mulberry mids, like I think retail was like 125, and
Yeah.
on
125.
Amazon they're like 250 plus. So you're
Yeah.
making like 50 a pair, and this is just off a pair of mids, which is crazy.
It was do you remember the pink foam? What is it? It's mint. It's called mint foam or something like that, mids. Do I still have
Mid.
one? They're mint. They're like a
I
sky
think,
blue.
yeah,
Kind
yeah, I think I know. Yeah, yeah,
Anyways, I was selling. That's when I first started selling. I was selling those like crazy, and they were just like regular. It was like a regular drop on Nike would just drop, and I was buying them so much manually too, and that Nike finally banned me. I was buying a bunch of those, and then the Poland mids. The
yeah,
Poland mids and those mids were just flying on Amazon. Yeah,
yeah. I think
but
stealth mids at one point too. The gray ones were okay.
oh yes, yes, the stuff. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so what can you say? And by the way, I could talk about like selling shoes on Amazon all day. So,
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
I got
so
all day.
what can you say helped or currently helps you with sourcing for online arbitrage?
Um,
I guess there's a lot of things that can help you. What would you say is like the most important thing that would
okay.
help you?
So what helps me the most with sourcing online arbitrage nowadays is obviously Keepa
Right,
and SellerAmp and any tool like that,
right,
and just learning how to use it effectively. And it's just over just the months of just like using it more and more and more, you get better at doing it. But
right.
actually using Keepa Product Finder, it's kind of like a basic version or just like an ugly UI version of Smart Scout,
Okay,
and it's just very good. You could really filter down results based on your rank or no sales rank. You can filter it down on the brand or the subcategory, and
right,
really just getting a narrowed result of like very high rank, fast moving items with
right,
a good buy box, 90%. You can actually filter it for the percent of the time, which
right,
is a good because you can kind of get those suppressed listings out of the way. It's just a good
right.
way to filter down better listings. Um, that's kind of like how I started doing it. But
Mm.
reverse sourcing was the first thing I actually started to learn,
Oh yeah,
and just finding out what people were selling at the time. I think that's the biggest thing for beginner sellers is just
yeah,
look at what other storefronts are selling, find a niche that you're good at. If you're good with shoes and apparel, go run with it. But I pivoted to like a lot of beauty products, personal care products. So it's okay to like go out your comfort zone.
mhm,
But sourcing wise, reverse sourcing, I really learned a lot in the beginning just because you were able to see what people sold. And yeah, you might have been a little bit too late at the time because most people are buying off Nike sales and then they get the product or the prep center gets the product, sends it out, and it's 2 weeks later and then the sale's already over. But now you know, like next time, that's what they sold. So like
right,
next time you see a big sale or a Labor Day or Memorial Day sale, you'll look for those items instead. And a lot of people just don't think that way. They're just like willy nilly, they're just like sourcing randomly. And I'm like,
right,
just because you had a bad sourcing day doesn't mean it's a bad sourcing day. You saw what people sold. So now your
right,
eyes are like very used to what
right,
like people are selling.
right,
And besides that, my third technique would just be manual sourcing. It's just finding sites that maybe other people just don't know about. There's a lot of Shopify sites. There's a lot of even like European sites, and I'm sure you know it from like botting those types of sites
yeah,
that will ship to the US for free
right,
if you have a big enough order. And if you could get lucky and get a coupon code that works and get it down and your buy cost works, then why not? But a
right,
lot of people just think those sites are sketchy because it's like European or whatever
right,
or Canadian. But just like that's the whole point of networking, asking people about sites, asking people about where they've bought from. And a lot of people gatekeep stuff, but you'll find those people in your DMs that'll like occasionally throw you a bone and like kind of help you out.
Right, right. Yeah, and also just to add something to the keep a product finder, I think the trend is very useful. Like you can trend on the offer count
Mm-hmm.
decreasing. So
Yep.
inversely the buy boxes
There's so
increase.
much. Yeah.
It's crazy.
There's so many things I could go about with Keep a
It's
Product
very
Finder, the
underutilized for
price
sure.
tracker and everything. It's
Yeah.
a very underutilized tool.
Mhm.
And it's people just need to just play around with their software more. They just like see videos of people doing it and they're like, oh, I'm going to do this. But they don't
Yeah.
realize there's so much more
Yeah. You
that
can
they
go to
can use. And it's a
YouTube.
$20 a month tool and it
Right.
gives you so much. Yeah. It gives you so much value.
Right. Right. Okay. And then let me ask you, when you first started, I think you did say that you did have sort of a mentor when you first began, right? Did you have any other kind of help outside of your mentor? I guess
Starting
how did
out,
you extract information outside your mentor, I guess?
so starting out with Amazon, besides the mentorship,
Mhm.
which was a little more like one-on-one teaching, I did
Uh,
have access to like a small like basic course. Um, but I put a lot of my like success on just like the amount of work ethic I put through. And obviously COVID helped. I was out of a job. I was still getting like paid for when COVID hit, and then like the botting
unemployment?
was doing that thing. But
Okay.
when I was actually in nursing school at the time,
Oh, yeah,
and
that's right. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't even bring that up yet. But I was in nursing school and I was not having fun in nursing school. I was doing well. I was doing okay. I
Uh,
was about a year into my program and I had, what was it? I was in an associate's program. So I had a
mhm,
big summer break. It wasn't
uh,
like a year long program. And I had like a good 6 month break between semesters. And I was starting Amazon during that point, which was like about a whole year ago to like 13 months ago today.
uh,
And back to school season obviously was a big thing back then. So I was doing a lot of research prior to selling and I was like, you know what, let me get prepared. And I just think a lot of that, listening to podcasts. I gave up video
oh,
games. I
yeah.
gave up listening to music. I was listening to podcasts in the car ride whenever I was driving to UPS. I
Yep.
was doing retail arbitrage to the Nike outlets 20 minutes away. I have like three of them. I was listening to podcasts every single time. I was listening to YouTube videos every single time. And then
Right.
on top of that, I was just networking. And a lot of people just don't see the behind the scenes of like my lifestyle. And they're
Right.
like, oh, this guy like did this. And I'm like, yeah, but I was putting in like 50, 60, sometimes
Yeah.
probably 70-hour weeks,
Oh,
honestly.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I
Um,
put a lot of credit towards just the work ethic that I put in. And obviously those courses helped me out, but a lot of the courses and mentorships was just to like set up my account, understand what Keepa, what SellerAmp was, and
right.
just how to just ship out items. And once I got like sourcing down, I was like, okay, sourcing's easy to understand from a tech standpoint.
Mhm.
You just got to keep doing it. That's really it.
Right. I think there's a learning curve. But I think if someone who just starts
Mhm.
selling wants to sell on Amazon, they spend that month just sourcing like a mug, just spending hours
Mhm.
and hours. They might not find anything that first day, the second day. When that third day they find something, now they have this one ace and that's going to make them money every month, or hopefully at least every other month until something happens. But that's what people don't understand is
Yeah.
like I have a few people that'll join the group and they'll just kind of watch some of my videos, whatever, and then they'll say they can't find anything in like it's only been like 2 days, and
Yeah.
I think it's the ones that the people that really grind it out for the first few weeks and they start finding some sales and get that breakthrough moment. Those are ones that really succeed. You can
Yeah.
tell which people those are by the questions they ask. Like
It-
there's a certain kind of question you can ask that you can tell people are just trying to get answers. Whereas there's
Mhm.
other questions where that they did some work to get to that question.
Yeah. They actually show you like,
Right.
I tried doing this. Is this the correct way to go about it? Instead of saying, where do I go source or
Yeah.
something like that.
Right.
And it's
Right.
funny because I get a lot of DMs all the time throughout Discord, like Twitter, Instagram,
Uh,
and it'll be like, oh, I sourced a few days, I can't find anything. And then I just don't answer them. And then a week later, the same person will DM me back, just kidding, I just found a lead. I'm like, see,
there you
like
go.
I
Yeah.
I saw your original message, but it's like you tried for like 4 hours. Like my
Right.
first product I found probably took me a week and a half.
Oh
And
wow.
actually, it's funny because it's a replenishable and I still have it. So like, you just gotta reverse source. You gotta try different methods. You just gotta
Yeah.
network and just keep going.
Right. And it's just a part of it too.
Can't
When you're
quit.
spending all those hours reverse sourcing, like I think you said earlier to your point, you start seeing all these different brands that you just didn't know existed. Like I
Hmm.
wouldn't know, I think I know probably like 80% more brands now selling on Amazon that I knew
Hmm.
like 2 years ago. It's just insane how many brands there are. And if you just start sourcing and when you first start reverse sourcing, those kind of like brands don't like poke out at you the way they do now because you're so familiar
Hmm.
selling them. So it just takes some time and repertoires of sourcing to get there.
Yeah,
Um,
it's funny because I know all these beauty brands now, and my girlfriend's like, "How do you know about all this stuff?" And I'm like,
other
"Well, I'm doing
beauty.
wholesale with like beauty companies now." So it's funny.
Yeah, she's gonna ask you to put her on, so you better be careful
Yeah, she's gonna try to buy a bunch of my stuff.
for the low low. Okay, so hey, what is your favorite category to sell? And I probably know the answer to that by now. And what's your least favorite category?
Hmm. Okay, so my favorite product category to sell on Amazon probably is anything that's considered a replenishable, or
Yeah,
I
for
wouldn't
sure.
even say replenishable. I'd say a consumable.
Right.
So definitely my favorite product category would be anything that's a consumable, mainly because you have that subscribe and save feature now with Amazon. So a lot of
Mhm.
these people that are buying consumables like chips, um, any grocery related thing,
Right.
Amazon doesn't really allow grocery returns, like
Right.
I think at all. I haven't
People
really
don't even
looked
think
too
about
far
it
into it,
either.
and like not many people are returning a grocery item. Like they know they want it, and especially like I said, the subscribe and save method. Most people will be like, "Oh, 5% off if I just subscribe a purchase every 3 months or every 6 months." So you're getting repeated customers to your storefront. So
Right.
like if you have buy box share and all that happens and you get sales, you're going to get repeated sales no matter what because it's just going to continuously buy that same product. So I'd say anything a consumable, I'd probably say it's like a grocery item or maybe a beauty product would be my like favorite categories.
Hmm.
And my least favorite categories would be more high ticket items, but
Yeah.
there's goods and bads to it. So like shoes and apparel, I'd probably put on my like bottom of the list with like electronics too. But that's only because I don't have an eBay account that works. Because what are you
Okay.
going to do with like refurbished stuff? Like you can
Right.
sell refurbished electronics on Amazon. You just have to like obviously list it that it's like in a certain condition, and you have to have these descriptions of these like used descriptions or these used product conditions, and that's how booksellers kind of do it. They'll have like a ranking system like used, very good,
Right.
excellent, new
Yes.
condition, and it's the same exact thing with anything that's refurbished. So I just hate setting that up, and
Yeah.
booksellers obviously can probably say the same thing. That's why most booksellers will transition to like OA and wholesale and stuff like that.
Right.
Um, but electronics are very good because the margins are high. Shoes are very good because the margins are high if you're sourcing
Likewise.
effectively.
Uh,
But from the return standpoint or the damage standpoint, or just like the evil sellers or evil buyers that are returning used stuff, those would probably be my least favorite categories.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, very well explained. You hit it on the nail too. Like with shoes and stuff, when they get returned, I can sell it on eBay, and I know if a shoe's worn, it's used. With
Yeah,
electronics, like if it comes in and something's wrong with it, it might be a
you don't
certain
even
kind of
know.
electronic where I don't even know. Maybe there's something else that was wrong with it than it just turning on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I'm still kind of hesitant with selling a lot of electronics. I do sell like smaller kind of things like USBs and stuff like that, but I've never really sold like a higher ticket
Flipper
electronic.
zeros?
Nuh-uh. Oh,
Flippers are a big thing.
yeah. I probably should. I probably should. Um, but as far as the shoes, I would still say my favorite category is shoes, mainly because I don't know. I do love like the higher margin per product.
Mhm.
Um, and it just, I guess I can hit it might be kind of lazy on my end because I can hit my spending goal every day a lot quicker as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I do need to start, especially because you're doing wholesale too with grocery. It might be a little more, appealing in that route.
Yeah, it's just less returns with those types of
Yeah.
products. I mean,
Yeah.
and like you said, shoes are great, but it's just, do you want to deal with the headache with returns? And
Right.
it is worth it because of the margins. It's
Uh,
just you might have to go through monthly or quarterly to kind of dispose of those used stuff. So
right.
it depends on your like I said before, work ethic. If you don't mind taking those returns,
Yeah.
someone's going to do it People are doing refurbished electronics. People are doing other refurbished stuff. It's the same
Yeah.
exact thing.
Yeah, it's a lot of taking pictures, posting on eBay. It's a whole bunch of other work after the fact. So yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. So do you believe someone can start on selling? Do you believe someone can start selling on Amazon FBA today with low capital? Let's say less than $500.
Um, I do believe someone could start on Amazon starting with $500,
Mhm.
but you would have to go about it certain ways. I would probably start with retail arbitrage
Right.
because generally it's a little bit easier to find higher margin stuff,
Mhm.
which will kind of churn your capital and just get you more profits from the start. Online arbitrage would work too, but the only issue is you're going to have seller ramp and Keepa, which is $20 a month, $20 a month, $40 a month for an Amazon account. So right there is $80 a month. So if you factor that in and you only have four, maybe $500 to play around with, you really got to be committed to this because most people will see that $80 a month in software and get scared.
Yeah.
And this is where a lot of people get discouraged. But if you use the free trials effectively right from the start and you go out and scan stuff and you have the right mentor or maybe just the right free community that teaches you this kind of stuff,
Mhm.
then I totally think someone can get started. Or you could do books like everybody else says.
Yep.
But to me, I don't books might sell slower, but the margins might be higher.
Yeah.
So you could start out with maybe like the basic account and then go to a pro account if you're going to do books because it's only a $1 fee per item. So there's
Mhm.
a few different methods you can go about it, but I do think you can start with $500 and make your way up to someone maybe of like you or me, like X amount of sales. It
Mhm.
might take longer,
Mhm.
and obviously scaling solely relies on capital, and a lot of
Right.
people just don't mention that. But
Yeah.
I'm very transparent in this community, and I know you're the same way. But if you start with $500, it will take a little bit longer to scale to certain sales marks.
For sure. And I think also those same people, like you're right, it's $80 out of 500, it's almost 20%. So that
Mhm.
might be a big turnoff to them, but they've also haven't ever sold on Amazon yet. So they're probably thinking, what if I buy these items and it doesn't sell? Most of the things you buy for Amazon, it's going to sell, but they haven't had that feeling yet,
Yeah,
right? Also, you can leverage credit cards, but I
yeah,
guess someone who has that little capital, they might not have the best credit score
they
yet
might have a
either.
low. Yeah,
Yeah, but that is a possibility too. You can leverage
yeah,
0% APR credit cards, which I really enjoy
yes,
doing.
which I totally like always talk about, and
Mhm.
I don't think it's talked about enough to be honest. But
Right. It's a
you always run the risk if you're a new seller. So I always make sure people understand that and
okay.
just understand the risks of that. But you do have usually a whole year to pay off that,
Right.
whatever if something goes wrong. But
And you can balance transfer if it lets you as well.
yes, that too. Yeah.
Okay. I know you have something at 8, so I'm gonna try to hurry it up a little bit. Okay.
No, you're good. I don't think I have anything anymore.
Okay.
Should be good.
So what is a reoccurring mistake that you see your students make?
Let's see. Let me think about that
That's a
one.
very generic question. I guess what's a reoccurring mistake you see your students make at the very beginning when they first start selling?
I'd probably say the biggest mistake is buying too deep on an item because
Gotcha.
they just don't read the keepas right.
Hmm.
And there's a big issue with Keepa nowadays that people still don't talk about this, and I'll gladly tell people when you change your max quantity on your product listing. Let's say
Yeah.
like you have 100 beauty products and they all come in. You send it out to inventory, seller amp or whatever tool will show that you have 100 in stock.
Hmm.
And a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I don't want that showing," so they'll change their max quantity order to like two,
Okay.
which just means from the buyer standpoint, you only can buy two at a time from that seller. The way Keeper interprets that is that it goes from 100 to two. So it thinks you sold 98. So
Mm.
that actually gets factored into whatever your tools show. And it's obviously wrong. So, like, if there's a shoe listing and there's five sellers on it and all five sellers buy from Nike and adjust like 10 to 2, then it's going to show a discrepancy of like 40 sales that just doesn't exist.
Are you saying that shows on the last 30 days, or are you saying it shows on a little graph?
It'll show on the last 30 days and the graph. You'll see like a flat
Wow.
line, like 20. It'll have like 20 in stock, and then it goes down to like one. It just means they
Interesting.
changed their product quantity.
Gotcha.
And I'll probably make a post about this in the future. I
Sure.
actually
Yeah,
haven't made a
that's
post about
interesting.
it, but
Wow.
It'll actually factor 19 sales for that. And you'll see it too. If you go across some shoe listings on like a recent Nike sale item and you go to like those sellers and you go to the
Mhm.
Keep a Data tab, you'll
Mhm.
be able to see it.
Yeah, I always thought something like that would be reflective on the graph, but I didn't think it would actually be reflective also on the last 30 days. But I guess it would make sense if you can see a similarity that there's a huge drop and then there's a big sale, but then the best sellers rank is like high as hell. It would make sense what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah. And it gets confusing with variation listings because like you just think it's obviously selling. But the thing you want to look for in a Keep a graph is in a Keep a graph under the data tab is you want to
Mhm.
look at the stock of the seller and you want to
Mhm.
see like staircasing down like this because it just
Mhm.
means like they're selling one, 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 one. But
Right.
if you see it go like this and then drop down, that means they're changing their quantity.
Okay. So I guess this is a good segue to this question. What is your favorite data point with Keepa?
I just like Keepa every honestly. My favorite just part about Keepa in general is just like being able to see the buy box, honestly, just seeing
Right.
the pink line, seeing if it's suppressed or not. But also the data tab just has so many factor points that you can really kind of just find out details about that product. Like you could see the buy box statistics, you could see the share percent, you could see if they're FBAing it or FBMing it, you could see when they last sold it. So then you could see like their average price sold. And I
Mhm.
think all those data points are just amazing from like keep aside of it. And for $20 a month, you can't go wrong.
So what is your take on a suppressed listing? Because when I first started selling, and I get these questions a lot from sellers or new sellers, is they're just really scared about entering a listing that has a suppressed buy box. And I remember when I first started selling, I was kind of staying away from them, but it's when I list on them, man, I still sell pretty well.
Mhm.
Albeit the seller's rank, you can see that it's definitely taking a hit. Once that buy box was suppressed, but how about you? Do you still go ahead and sell on a suppressed buy box? What's your take on a suppressed buy box?
Yeah, I think it also depends on the product category because I feel like shoe people might be a more younger, tech people where
Mm,
they understand that all you have to do is click see more buying options. Whereas
yeah.
like if it's like a makeup item and it's like, I don't know, 50-year-old or 60-year-old buying it,
Uh,
they might not know that it's like they'll just be like, "Oh, I don't see it anymore," and then they don't buy it because they just
right.
get confused. But I still do buy on suppressed listings. I also think that suppressed listings tend to get suppressed when vital info is missing from that product listing. And
I keep a
also
suppressed
when
buy
there's
box.
minimal suppressed buy box, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
is when the vital info is just like missing. Sometimes people will like add a new
Really?
size to something
Uh-huh.
and they'll forget to include like import details or the if it's cotton or if it's whatever the description might be missing. So I've heard that could play a
Hmm.
role in it, but also if there's not much FBA stock,
Hmm.
it also causes the buy box to get suppressed.
Dang, Amazon is
Because I
good.
actually I tested it out with this other product that I was selling. It was a replan of mine that was more of a seasonal replan, and
Right.
I noticed it was suppressed and it wasn't even profitable at
Hmm.
that point. But there
Hmm.
was nobody FBAing it, and I was like, "Why is nobody FBAing it?" Because the FBA price was like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
through the roof. So I was like,
Right.
you know what? Let me just buy 10 just
Uh-huh.
to see what happens. I sent them out to FBA and I priced it like $10 higher and I got the buy box and it came
Wow.
back,
Yeah. Huh.
which is just like which is just weird because I feel like the buy box will tend to appear more if there is FBA sellers on it. But at that time there was none. So
Okay.
and it was weird because you could kind of see in the graph like a buy box going in and out sometimes, and you
Uh,
can go down and look at the FBM offer count, and it kind of reflects it sometimes.
Interesting.
So if it
Yeah.
goes from zero to two to 0 to 2, you can
Uh,
kind of look up above, and if it's also buy box disappearing coming back, it's kind of like reflective of the offer count. Sometimes, not all the time.
okay. Yeah. I guess I've always attributed a suppressed buy box with really just the market price being way too high, right? But you're
That
saying it
too.
also might have to do with FBM orders and also the vital info.
I
Wow.
think it
Okay.
is also
Yeah.
price too. If people are
Yeah.
gouging it,
Yeah.
they will take
Yeah.
it away.
Yeah.
A
I'm
lot of
sure there's
shoe
a lot of
listings happen.
no, you make some fair points. There's probably a lot of other metrics to it instead of just that. So that's
Yeah,
that's
there's
a fair
probably
point.
there's probably 10, 20, honestly. Amazon's
Yeah.
a genius
Yeah.
company, honestly. So there's probably a bunch of reasons.
Right. Right. Okay. So, what was your breakthrough moment during your Amazon business endeavor? And It can be any kind of breakthrough in any facet of Amazon.
Okay. My breakthrough moment with Amazon FBA was definitely December of 2022. It was like the Q4 season, my first ever like Q4. And that was probably like month 4, 5, 6 for me because I
Uh,
started last June of 2022.
uh,
And I'd say like October, November, December was like when I first started seeing like 50K, 75K sales. And then December hit.
uh,
And I never realized, like, people were like, oh, December is going to be crazy. And I was like, all right, let me just buy cautiously, but I'll buy maybe like 10 or 20% more than what I think I should buy. And everything sold out. And I
right.
had 135,000 in sales in December. And that was my 6th month on Amazon. And that was when my school break started. So from that like holiday season up until like the next, technically I took off the next semester because Amazon was actually doing so well. I deferred the program. I pushed it back,
Wow.
and it was strictly because of that 135K sales month. And
Wow. Yeah.
I made a good chunk of change from that. My margins were really good, and now I'm just like 10 times more prepared for this Q4 coming up. But
That
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 I would
that
put
Q
all of that credit towards it.
that Q4 demand is kind of happening right now too. I
Yeah.
will say, you know what's funny about Q4 is everyone always was pushing the agenda of FBMing and get your shipments in early. Dude, I was doing that, of course. I was FBM something so I wouldn't miss Christmas sales. But dude, I was sending FBA shipments in and they were checking them actually, I would say even faster than normal. And it was flying off the shelves. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you experience that at all? Were you like FBMing more? Were you sending your shipments earlier? Or did you even like not send
So
things in so you can get that FBM sale?
So last Q4, I since I had like a beginner account or whatever, I didn't have a
Right.
lot of sales on it at the time.
Uh,
So metrics play a big role in your like capacity limits at FBA. So
right.
for people that might not know what that means, like you only could send in X amount of stuff with like a
Mm,
brand new account because they
uh,
don't want new sellers hopping on and sending a bunch of products under the wrong listing or wrong sizes
yeah,
under
yeah,
the
yeah.
wrong eSIN.
Like rookie
So they'll
mistakes.
limit you to just make sure your metrics are good. So at the time, I actually was FBMing a lot in November, December because they capped me at a specific amount of. I forgot how they did it, but I think they did it by units or a specific quantity you only could send per category or something, or per standard storage is what they did. But now they have the capacity limit, which is a little different. I think
Right.
it's more reflective on your metrics and your account age and stuff like that, and just like your sales numbers. But I did FBM a lot, but it was truly just because I could not send any more out, and the FBM sales were through the roof.
Wow.
So honestly, it's a great way to just make an extra chunk of change because the fees are a little bit less. So if it makes sense from a shipping standpoint,
Mm,
FBMing during like honestly now to December is a good idea too because back
right.
to school
Yeah.
season's crazy.
Right.
If you have seasonal products too for like the holidays, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
But
I
you
think
do have to deal with the returns. So
right, right. I think a lot of people can start now. This would be the best time if you ever wanted to start Amazon FBA is now where you can get the back to school demand.
mhm.
You can just creep into Q4. A lot of people are surprised after Q4 the demand kind of dropping a little bit, but you got to
Yeah.
play the whole year game.
Yeah.
So next question for you is how many VAs do you have if you have any, and how do you delegate your tasks to them? Or if you don't have VAs, how do you delegate your tasks? Period.
So I actually don't have any VAs. I had a VA for like 3, 4 weeks to kind of handle wholesale applications, just like emailing
Right.
people. But
Mm,
the language barrier just didn't work.
yeah.
And I just felt like that's a big issue with US companies. They just,
Right.
want proper grammar. They want people that understand the language properly. I'm sure you could find VAs that just understand English. Maybe it was just my fault, just maybe
Mm,
just grabbing a bad VA.
mm,
But I had them switch to OA sourcing and it just wasn't going well. So I was like, you know what,
yeah.
this is just not working out. So I had her for about a month. And ever since then, I've just been doing a lot of manual sourcing, reverse sourcing myself because I do it full time.
Yeah.
And I did about 25% of my time, I pivoted to wholesale. And once I found a few good suppliers, I work with like 3 or 4 suppliers right now
Uh-huh.
that I'm getting consistent leads to the point where I don't really need to look for other wholesale opportunities right
Mm,
now, that I don't really need a VA because I'm
right.
spending all of the money I have. I took out a couple loans. I'm spending that money.
There you go.
But if I start to scale up and I need more OA products, I won't mind hiring a VA. But just right now, I just don't need one.
If you do
But the
need a quality
tasks,
one, let me know. I do know some
for
ones that
sure.
are the ones that speak really well. That's a number one for me as well. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but
No, you're
I
good.
I know quite a few that speak really well. That's like the first thing I look for as well.
Mm.
But I do know a lot of people that go and hire a VA and they don't even know how to source that well yet, and they think it's like something
Yeah.
magic's gonna happen. You know, it's kind of like people who try to hire people on Fiverr, but
Yeah.
you got to train them first, right? So
Yeah.
you continue. Go ahead.
And I think part of it was just me being just like a beginner in the wholesale world. Like I didn't do a voice test. I did a trial period and I was like, oh, this looks good. And then it just didn't work good. But now I know what to ask for the next VA. Now I know how to, tweak my application to get a better VA and just get a more experienced one. And then you could use like programs like Loom, which is just a Chrome extension,
Right.
and you could train them how you source and just send them a video. Just
Yep.
get a Zoom plan or a Skype plan, and then just send them a video of you sourcing, and then they're gonna just hear you and see how you go about it, and just get 10 times better. And I
Right.
think that's like one really good way that 99% of people aren't gonna do that, and
Right.
I think that's what sets most people aside from being successful and not being successful.
Right. I think like I know you did that Zoom plug, but hey guys, Skype is free. Skype is free.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
well, I'll go over with my VAs what I do on Skype, and they can actually record. I think you can probably do it on Zoom too. They'll record the
Yeah.
video, so I don't have to like. I will sometimes use OBS and kind of record my screen and send them exactly what I want to do because it's much more easier than me typing some stuff. And even with the ones that speak better English, it's just easier to show them on video.
Yeah.
But yeah, what were you talking about? Oh,
I didn't
speaking
answer
of
your second part too about delegating.
right, right. Wanted to say the wholesale VA that you had. How did you? Did she help you find any of the wholesales, or how did you transition from OA to wholesale? Was I guess on your own without that VA's help?
So I did a lot of it in the beginning myself, and I
Mm.
realized that just contacting them was crazy, and it was just like I'm spending too much time. So that's what made me hire one, and
Gotcha.
I was just getting so many emails that just weren't answered, and I was like, I just need more of these applications sent back. I
Right.
just need. So I was like, you know what? Let me just set aside one day a week. And then I just started doing that. So I would source like 4 or 5 days a week, and then I would set aside like a good 8 hour day of just looking up suppliers in my area, looking up suppliers on the East Coast. And I would go by like beauty for one day, and then the next day I'd go by grocery or personal care. And I'd kind of niche it down a little bit. But I also went to trade shows, and that's just another
Nice.
big thing.
There you go.
And I'm going to ASD again for the second time. And there's Expo East and Expo West, and there's Sweets and Snacks in Chicago. There's a bunch. So this is going to be my second one, and I'll be at Expo East later in the year for my third one. And I think that's a good way to meet suppliers too.
Nice. Nice. Okay.
And also going off of the delegation question, since I
Sure.
don't have VAs, most of
Uh,
the delegating that I do now
uh,
is opening up like prepping stuff. So just more I do a lot of in-house because I'm in New Jersey.
oh
Because I don't
yeah. Tax free.
because it's tax free. So instead of paying a prep center,
Yeah, it wouldn't make
75
sense. To.
cents to $1.25,
Yeah.
I'm paying someone a $15 an hour wage, which if I can get like 200 wholesale items out and labeled,
Yeah.
it's like 8 cents a unit. So I'm like, why
That'd be
wouldn't I
good
just
too.
do that? Yeah. So I delegate a lot of prepping, opening packages, flattening boxes, going to the recycling center, all of that. So I used to do a lot of it. That's what kind of went back on those 70-hour work weeks back when I was first starting out. But now I delegate a lot of it because those tasks are pointless tasks.
Right. So you're saying you have an employee, right?
Family members and
That's
some
family.
neighbors, but
Okay.
yeah,
And how's that? Like, do they come every day? Because you obviously have shipments come in every day, right?
it
With
depends
OA.
on the workload of that week. So if I have like a
Okay.
pallet for wholesale stuff
No.
and I need a lot of it unboxed, I'll have
Yeah.
like a neighbor or a family member, and I'll be like, hey,
Okay.
for the next 3 hours, let's do this task, and I'll pay 15 an hour, just like a standard prep
Yeah.
person would employee would get. And I would just say, hey, these are the tasks for today. Like, let's just get this done. Whatever, 3 hours of work. If you finish early, I'll find other tasks, and then that's pretty much
Gotcha.
that.
So you kind of pay per project kind of thing. What you're
Yeah,
saying.
kind of. It's
Gotcha.
not like a 5 days a week type thing.
Right.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Eventually, when I get to the point where I scale and have enough capital to be like buying that much, I would like
Yeah.
to get like 1,000 square foot warehouse for that. But I probably won't do that until like early, maybe Q1. of
Right.
2024.
Because then you have to be committed to that, giving them those hours. And if you don't have those hours,
Hmm.
then it becomes an
Exactly.
issue. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd rather it be per diem
Gotcha.
right now.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So what is your take on Amazon state as of right now? Like as far as seller saturation, demand, customer traffic, etc.
I think the Amazon state today is still a great lucrative business model. I don't think it's saturated. I think if you are told it's saturated and you believe it, it's just you just shouldn't believe those types of people
Right.
because like we're doing shoes and everybody says shoes is saturated and
Right.
shoes aren't saturated. Certain sales from certain
Certain
websites are
listings. Yeah.
saturated,
Yeah.
like sometimes Nike.com, but it's just because some people might be working on lower capital and they'll have to sell that item within 2 or 3 weeks, but I'll still source from Nike.com. And if you
Right.
just wait for that rebound like a month or two later, you'll get it back at that price point where it was when you sourced it. So I don't think online arbitrage or retail arbitrage, any even wholesale, I don't think the Amazon state's fine.
Right.
I think it's a very lucrative business model, and it probably will always be. There's always going to be market discrepancies on products or retail websites,
Right.
or with just within wholesale.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, so
Amazon's only growing. Yeah, Amazon's
Amazon
going to do
has,
like 750 billion, I think, this year or something.
I don't know the percentage. I had the percentage before, but Amazon owns a huge chunk of the online e-commerce marketplace, and it's crazy, and it's only growing. There's so much. If you like,
They
it's
did like
online.
45% of sales
Yeah,
last year.
yeah. Like imagine it being foot traffic, like in a mall. Like each store was your store. Like it would be so crowded, people couldn't even walk through. That's how much
Yeah,
Amazon traffic it
yeah.
has. Um, I wanted to say something about Nike. Like how I got banned on Nike after a while. That was probably the best thing that could have happened to me because everyone and their mamas, I feel like at the very beginning,
Yeah.
go to Nike. And a lot of times, if there's a sale on Nike, man, like, and you buy that listing, or sorry, you buy that product and you sell on that listing, 2 weeks down the line, like 9 times out of 10, it's going to tank because everyone's going there. So when I
Yeah.
first got banned on Nike, it forced me to like source other
Look
places.
elsewhere.
I had like a little bit of help on Nike. I had this source, I guess, of getting the discounts or discount codes and whatnot.
Mhm.
So I had this
Mhm.
little competitive advantage. We're all like 10% off. So that helped a lot. And at the same time, I was learning more about discounted gift cards at that time.
Yeah.
And on top of that, cash back, all that, I was, that's kind of what my breakthrough moment was with like discounted gift cards and cashback credit cards, all that stuff, right? And then Rakuten, all that. I used to factor all that in. But anyways, when I first got banned on Nike, I was like, damn, like what am I going to do now? It was doing so well. But then it forced me to go to all these other sites that I actually already knew about, like ASOS and all those like low key sites that we used to buy and
Just the
whatnot
other
back in the day.
retailers. Yeah.
Yeah. But there were just other retailers that I just never looked at because I was just kind of being dependent on a store that everyone else was already
Mhm.
shopping, So,
Yeah.
okay. So I guess this is a really good question to ask you because you were in nursing school. What's your take on college, the future of college, and if it's mandatory for not only an entrepreneurial endeavor, but just anyone that's just looking for a job or looking for a career when they get out of high school?
I well, my first thing is
Kind of a packed question.
I think it's okay for people to take a leap year
Mhm.
from high school to college. I
Yeah.
don't think it's like a bad thing. Like if you don't know what you want to do, it's okay to like maybe get a job for like 6 months, a year, and then apply for the next year. I think a lot of people are forced from their parents to find a career immediately, which is like kind of what I went through, and I kind of like
Yeah.
regret it completely because I
Yeah.
was like, my parents were just like, "What do you enjoy? Like, go with that." And
Yeah.
at the time, I was just big into weightlifting. I was a personal trainer, so I was like, I'll just go into health science. And I
Kinesiology.
actually, and I was like, oh, this is like a good career to have. There's nothing wrong with the medical field. I think if you're going to
Right.
go to
Oh,
college for medical science or any like engineering, you're
yeah.
going to have to go.
Yeah.
And you get paid well. And if you
Right.
put in obviously the work, it's totally worth it. But if you're coming more from like a business standpoint or marketing standpoint or just e-commerce, I think
Mhm.
college is still necessary because it really just like teaches you how to just like,
Grow up.
get your
Yeah.
shit together pretty much.
Yeah.
So like I would probably say like marketing, business, entrepreneurship is actually what my sister went to school for, and she owns a couple
Business.
businesses.
Oh, really? Okay.
And computer science. I think there's nothing wrong with computer science too. But
Right.
if you don't think if you really don't think it's something for you, it's okay to like take a leap year and just think about it and find what you're good at first before you just pick something out of the blue, kind of like what I did. Because then I actually ended up trying to apply for physical therapy school for 3 years, didn't work out. Tried
Right.
nursing school for 2 years, didn't work out. So I wasted a big chunk of my career, a good
Right.
5 years, and I was just working minimum wage during
Right.
that time.
Right.
And then I was taught about botting and Amazon, and that's kind of what took off pretty much. So I think college is definitely a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it goes from like person to person. It's whatever you truly enjoy, whatever you think. Don't let other people influence your decisions.
Right. Yeah, I think especially in the Amazon space, college gets denigrated so much for really no
Mm-hmm.
reason. I think it really depends person to person. Like it's a return on investment thing. If you're spending all this money on college and the job you're going to get at the output doesn't pay that well, you're kind of doing it to yourself. Like what you were
Yeah.
saying, if you're going in for like nursing, any of the STEM majors, computer science, then
Yeah.
obviously the job you're going to get on the outside other side of getting a degree is in demand. It's a high paying job. It's worth it, right? But if
You
you're
know
going,
what you're going to get. Yeah.
yeah, but if you're going for like, I don't want to shit on anyone's degree, but if you're going to get a degree that you know isn't going to pay well after, it's not worth that price that you're paying for college, unless your college is going to get paid for somehow. Then I do think it's a good tool to grow. Like you're pressured into taking tests, to study for tests, to get your organized, have all these responsibilities. If you can do that while it's paid for, I think you should
Yeah.
definitely do it
And
instead of getting a job.
yeah, and I think like business marketing is just like the average like thing everybody just goes into because they
Yeah.
don't know what they want to do, which is not a
Right.
bad thing,
Yeah.
but there's just lots of jobs you can get with that. And it like I said, I don't want to like shit on those types of jobs either, but it really just comes down to your work ethic. If you go to a business school or a marketing type school, you're going to come out with the job, but like the harder you work, you're going to be able to find jobs that are going to pay more. The harder you work, the more you're going to get recognized, and it's just so on and so on. It just sucks. The corporate train does suck because you do have to work 5 to 10 years to get to a high point, which I
Right.
see single-handedly from my friends.
Right.
And you could literally pay a mentor $2,000 to just teach you how to sell on Amazon, and you can
Right.
make potentially 6 figures within a year or two,
Mhm.
depending on your financial situation. And
Right.
it really just comes down to what you truly want to do.
And there's a ceiling to that corporate role too. Like unless you're like a top 1%, you have this esoteric knowledge, you're gonna hit a ceiling sooner or later, even if you're like
Yeah.
10 years, 15 years experience, where
And
Amazon or
connections usually play a huge role in that too.
right, right. So I'm curious on this question. What is your most like stressful time on Amazon? And how did you overcome that stressful time?
I actually talked about this the other day with Fast Track FBA, if you know him. I actually had a product get deleted off Amazon because there was a Nike recall on a backpack.
Can
And
you
I was
explain, elaborate on delete? What do you mean by delete?
So Amazon just totally got rid of the product because there
Oh,
was a product recall. And I was like,
wow.
why is there a product recall on a backpack? So I looked into it. I couldn't find any information, but Amazon sent me like a deactivation like listing, and
Wow.
I opened up a case and they said there was like something related to a product recall. And I actually saw it on my account health, and I
Backpack.
was like, this makes no sense. It said it was like a child related ASIN,
Oh,
and
okay.
there's a child safety compliance issue and it got recalled, but it was an adult Nike backpack. So I was like, this makes no sense. So I actually had me and like 4 other sellers that I knew were on the listing, like all open up a case that day
Uh-huh.
saying like, this is an adult Nike backpack. Why is it getting a child compliance? Like there's no reason it should get removed. And I had like $6,000 in backpacks at the time.
Okay.
And a week later, it just popped back up on Amazon. So that was
Yeah,
like just the biggest scare of my life.
that stuff
And
happens, man.
that's the biggest risk with Amazon is always test your products. Don't go super deep on something you don't know about because you never know what's going to happen. And especially for beginners that have that 500 or that $5,000 to invest, if you
Yeah,
go deep on one product and the ASIN disappears or the whole entire variation gets split up and
yeah,
the sell through rate just slows down, then it just sucks. It messes with your whole like sell-through rate and stuff like that, or you might not even be able to sell that item.
Yeah.
But you could obviously sell on eBay and other platforms, but it will mess with your just experience pretty much.
That's why I get so hesitant about beauty, because a lot of my issues have always been beauty. I don't know if you ever heard me say, but like whenever there's a beauty, I didn't know this till after the fact, but whenever there's a beauty brand that's in that generic brand,
Yeah.
that's when Amazon bots catch it and they think there's an IP issue, because
Yeah.
obviously the picture has like, I don't know, Sephora, but the category, the brand, the store it's in is in generic, and it flags it. And
Yeah, I think it's because it's like a different fee
well,
rate or
the
something. I
Amazon
don't
bot,
even know.
no, the Amazon bot somehow detects that there's a Sephora logo that's like very well known on a store that says generic, and it doesn't tie together. And that's why when you try to open up a ticket about it,
Mhm.
the support will even tell you, oh, this was an automated thing. It wasn't like the rights owner sending a complaint, an IP complaint, you know.
It was like
And
actually a bot. Yeah,
it was
that's
just actually in a bot.
scary.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
there's
and
so
that's
many
why
times.
test buys are always important.
That's why so many
Yeah.
times I've had to open up a ticket and explain to them and show them all this crap. And I wish I knew other sellers like you did, like just had this like army to open up a ticket. But
Yeah.
I want to say at least 3 times. And like it was after the third time that I realized, holy shit, like these have always been from this generic store. And I go, I'm like, what the hell is this generic store? And I realized it was just like some bullshit store whenever like there's a listing, like the listing messes up somehow. So
Yeah.
um
And
I
there's
thought you
always
were
a
gonna
risk.
see, I thought you were gonna say something about like an inauthenticity or like an IP complaint or something like that.
Well, like, so that's the thing. People get scared about that, but if you
Mm,
have legitimate invoices, you're gonna
right.
beat it 10 out of 10 times. I've
Yeah.
never my
Mm,
account health is perfect
mm,
minus the Flipper Zero issue.
nice.
Which if people don't know about Flipper Zeros, it was a very big item on Amazon that got removed.
Uh,
And there was 2 different listings, and pretty much the brand pretty much came down and slammed everybody with IP
oh fuck.
issues.
Wow.
And I have 2 IP complaint issues from both listings that I was selling under.
Oh
Um,
wow.
but pretty much the brand just sells it completely now. But for
Mm.
those who don't know, on your account health, they'll fall off your account after 180 days. So it just takes
After
you
180 days, but
6 months.
but I think it's one of those things where like it'll stay on your like record kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like a
Um,
hidden little record. But basically, just be cautious, test buy,
yeah.
and your account score, your health score goes up for I think every 200 successful orders. So it
Right.
goes up 4 points. So if you get an IP complaint, it'll really knock it down pretty low. So just be
Yeah.
cautious.
And Amazon does like it when you appeal and you show invoices, even if you can't win it.
Mhm.
Amazon likes that you at least attempt it. If you just like don't
Yes,
do anything, it's going to be even a worse of a red flag.
and
So
never acknowledge it either.
yeah,
Try to fight it.
try to fight it. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
sometimes you have to.
yeah.
uh, okay, so I guess that's another curious question I had for you is: do you still use bots? If so, which ones do you use?
Um, so I do still own bots. I have
Yeah.
Project Enigma and I have MechAIO still, just because I had
Um,
the like 6 month membership or whatever.
right.
Um, but
Project
I
Manager is a good
don't
one.
plan on using it anymore, just because Project Enigma was really good. I made a
Yeah,
good chunk of
it
change
is.
off
It's good.
PE. I had 2 copies,
Mm,
um, and I remember like the Travs dropped the high tops. I hit a couple pairs, not the high tops. I think it was the lows.
mm,
The Phantom, the black pairs. I hit like 10 of those, um, and eventually it just started like dying down. I think it had to do with my accounts. I think I just like had like 400 Nike accounts that were just totally fried. And
um,
that's when I was like doing really well on Amazon back in like Q4. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. Let me just pivot towards Amazon. And I just went full steam ahead on Amazon. But MechAO is really good for Shopify sites too. So if you
right.
can, throw coupon codes in there and, eat up stock, it's very good.
Right.
But it's all dependent on a product or a website. So if you know more about it, if you know more about like hats and stuff like that, it's very
Right.
lucrative.
I did see how like so I still work at Stella Proxy, so I still kind of in the loop of which bots are doing good,
Mm-hmm.
and Project Enigma is still doing very
Still
well. There's
cooking.
still a large user base for Project Enigma,
That's
Mech
nice.
as well. Some I think a little bit of Prism. I don't like me personally. I don't bot anymore. I feel like there's probably things that are bottable that I can put on automation or something. I just haven't taken the time to look for. Like
Yeah,
I
it's a
like
lot of work.
yeah. But I do think there's people still botting that just don't know about. It's just like these low key cooks that I should
Yeah,
probably know about.
I think hats are very good. They're always going to be good as long as these sites just don't mass produce. Kind of like what happened with pandas.
Right.
Eventually, it's going to crash, but there's always going to be a hot shoe, like no matter what. And it all just depends on like the user base. If P, releases 500 copies or whatever, it's going to be less success per user. So it all just is reflective on that. But and obviously the stock, but no one really knows that to a T. So
right.
But there's always stuff that's going to
a lot of people think they do, but what are your you know what I'm talking about. I do miss sneaker reselling, man. About all those like drama and beefs on Twitter.
Yeah,
those videos and whatnot. Okay, so if you can tell me, what are your future goals with selling on Amazon? I'm going to kind of put a pin on it with this question. What are your future goals with selling on Amazon?
So my future goals with selling on Amazon is that I plan to have obviously a warehouse up in place by next year.
Like a prep center or just a warehouse, like a personal warehouse?
Just like an in-house just an in-house warehouse.
Oh, cool.
An in-house, basically a prep center essentially, but for myself.
Yes.
So just a warehouse, maybe 1,000 square feet. Hopefully by Q1 or Q2. I keep saying Q4 this year, but it's probably going to get pushed back because I do want to actually rent a new place or buy a house or something like that with some of the money that I've made from Amazon, because I just need more garage space for in-house prep. But if I end up renting a place, I'm going to actually just get a 1,000 square foot, storage space to do all my Amazon from. And on top of that, I just kind of want to do a lot of business with wholesale and just continuously just like feed the beast continuously. Right. I'm obviously setting money aside, for my like leisurely activities and go on vacations and stuff like that. But I continually want to reinvest all of the profits, or 75% of the profits, back into inventory, because that's the best way on scaling. And as long as you're safe about it, it's not that bad. You just got to really just network, talk to people, make sure you're doing everything right. And hopefully I'll have one, set in place. It's not too expensive in Jersey either. So hopefully by maybe Q1, I'll have something.
You can always prop open, bed in your prep center.
Yeah. I could just like live out of that, but we'll see. We'll see.
Speaking of that money compounding, you're right. Like people don't understand how much people don't understand how much like money can compound. It's like the people that take out their cash back and the Rakuten, I just don't understand that. Like if you, what do you do with your cash back from Rakuten and whatnot? Do you reinvest it or do you use it for like, you do, right?
I'm not one of these people that's buying Rolexes or fancy cars and shit like that. And I mean, I do like them, but why would I pay for like fancy stuff or, fancy clothes, $100 t-shirts and stuff like that now when I made like 15K or somewhere around that just off cash back. Right. And if you put that in inventory over the course of 12 months, that's another
that's the thing. 12 months down the line, you're still seeing profits off of that cash back.
15K over 12 months is what? Right. I don't even know, 150, 100, 180K. And then if you're doing 10% off that, it's 18K. Right. From just cash back from the previous year. Okay. So if you're that's obviously based on like a sell-through rate of 30 days, but I think your best way of scaling for especially a lot of the people that are just getting started is to just continuously reinvest. And a lot of people I've talked to are like 18 to 21, just reinvest. Like, obviously have your fun, do your thing. But I'm at the point in my life where it's like, I want to enjoy my 30s. Right. Just as much as I wanted to enjoy my 20s, which I did. But when I'm 30 and 40, I want to just be able to, wake up in the morning and not have to work 10 hours to like just get by, Right. For sure. So I think continuously, reinvesting that money and focusing on making sure you get cash back and stuff like that. I don't factor that into my buy cost for cash back.
I don't either. Yeah.
I just treat it as non-taxable income, and it just gets thrown back into my business checking. Basically, that just goes towards inventory.
Yeah, I wouldn't even feel right. Like I love getting my cash back from like the cash back check and Rakuten, just taking a picture and putting it right back in my business debit account. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that. Okay, so that kind of wraps up all my questions. Thank you for like answering them so in depth.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me.
I want to go ahead and please drop your promos. I know you have a course and coaching and whatnot, so go ahead and please promo that for me.
Yeah, so I finally have finished all of my coaching content. I do have a private coaching server, which I only bring in about 5 students a month. It is very limited. I usually max it out, so sometimes there's a wait list, sometimes there isn't. If you're interested in that, obviously, feel free to reach out to me on any of my socials. Everything is TonaFBA. I do have a free Discord as well, so it just goes over basic Q&A, basic software. It's really good for people that are just starting out, and you can actually book a call with me through there if you're interested in the coaching. And then on top of that, I just finally pushed it out on my Gumroad that you can actually buy the coaching content without the private server and the private coaching calls and Zoom calls and stuff like that. So feel free to check it out. Discord link is in all my bios and stuff like that. My Gumroad links are thrown throughout my tweets and posts, so I'm sure you can find it. But everything's in my Discord too. So if you want to get started on Amazon, feel free to shoot me a DM, whatever, or just pop in the Discord. I think it's got like 1,300 members now, and I just started.
Oh, nice! Dang,
three months ago, I think.
Yeah,
it's growing very fast.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of people just like see the access to like me and other successful sellers, and it's a growing community. I think Amazon FBA is a great. People say it's saturated, but I don't think it's saturated. I think a lot of new people are kind of hearing about this and they want to join. So joining free communities like mine, even if you don't want coaching or if you don't want to pay for like expensive mentoring, I do have like a $500 course, which is just exactly what I did. I paid for a $500 course. I learned the sourcing techniques when I started, and I did have some one-on-one assistance, luckily, because I knew someone in the space. But networking, free communities is the best. So that's all I really have to say. And I thank you for even just having me. And doing
this. For sure. Yeah, and follow him at TonaFBA at Instagram. He's a great follow. He spits out all his game every single day, and I've watched his growth this whole time. It's pretty impressive to see how far you've came, for real.
Thank you.
Again, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you answering all the questions. And everyone else, thank you for watching. We'll see you guys on the next video.
Thank you for having me.